No, carry on, Darren replied, and I watched as the gate disappeared into the distance. Moments later, we stopped. A line of cars in front of us didn't move. I think they have a funeral on. I looked behind and started to reverse. What are you doing? I'm going to go through that gate. I slammed on the brakes as a car came into my behind me. What the heck, man? We are going to have to go forward. It will be fun. Calm down. The cars in front had moved to the side now, parking up on the grass patches. Carefully I pulled out, making sure not to drive on the grass to the right and cover countless gravesites. A man in a suit walked in front of us and waved me to park up. Great, I said, he thinks we were all here for funeral. I ignored him and gestured that I needed to pass. Calmly he walked over the car and I opened the window. Good morning, sir. Please park on the space on the left. You are mistaken. We need to. Darren grabbed my arm. Just park up. When they are all gone, we can leave. Don't make a scene. People here will be grieving. I sighed and I parked along the verge. What now? I asked. Come on, you are a salesman. You can't pretend it. Serious? He produced a mischievous grin. Damn serious. We stood next to the car and I felt out of place. You should put your tie on, Darren suggested. Really? It would like a little disrespectful for not now. It would look a little disrespectful not to. I shook my head, opened the boot and pulled out 3 ties. Shall I wear the red one with the musical notes, the blue one with the paisley design, or this yellow number? I would go with the blue one. For the first time ever, Darren standing there with a black tie. Looked like the professional one. Why are you wearing a black tie? I said as a frantically I tried to remember half a Windsor not without a mirror. It's neutral. You are only supposed to wear the funeral or dinner parties. Well, I'm not a place today. I am. We continued to stand next to the car as we watched all the mourners leave theirs. This isn't right, I said, clasping my hands in front of me, trying to become the character I was portraying. More cars arrived and the line of vehicles grew. Look at all the graves. I said, how many do you think have been visited in the last 5 years or 30 years? Not many, I wouldn't have thought. I want to be imitated, I don't want to be forgotten. Make sure Susie knows. Me too, yeah, I will. We stood in silence, seeing more people walk hand into the towards the church. The man in the suite approached us. Please make your way to the ceremony, will be starting soon. He placed his hand on my back and gently nudged me. Are we really doing this? It appears so, Darren said, and I could tell he was enjoying himself. What the heck? Surely this is disrespectful. We are 2 more people come to mourn the loss of fellow human being. How can that be disrespectful? We can't walk this way, I said as we approached some graves. The thought of walking over someone's eternal resting place made me shudder. We cut across the grounds and joined the main path that led to the church. Do you think they dig up the graves when they run out of space? I would hope not. Look how many there are. I did some mental arithmetic trying to get a guesstimate of the number of the plots throughout the grounds. There has to only be around 500 to 700 plots here. How many people must have died over the past 100 years? Thousands? They must do it. I bet there's a mass grave of all the people who didn't pay a lot. From behind, I heard a young woman cry. I turned to see her. A man, I assumed her spouse, stared daggers at me. I'm sorry, I said. Her demeanor changed as she glanced at Darren. So sorry for your loss, he said to her. Thank you, she said, and the pair moved past us. What was that? I said in a whisper. Salesmanship, they don't know we aren't supposed to be here. We stopped as we reached the entrance to the church. We really doing this? I asked again. No turning back now. You are a really good friend. I laughed, not to lose at a duke out of place. Remember to mention this in your best man speech. He smiled and put his hand on my shoulder. Along the main road leading to us, we saw the hearse. Here we go, I said. We did it have to happen now. His young woman said from behind. I didn't want to be rude, so I didn't turn. When it's your time, a man said. I'm going to miss him so much. Me too. It took an eternity for the hearse to stop in front of us. Another black car behind came to hat and our step 5 man. Sir, could you help? The sweet man said to Darren, Sure, what do you need? We only have the 5 pulveers. Would you be kind enough to help? I will be honored, Darren replied. Excuse me, his health isn't great. Let me do it. Nonsense, he said to me. I'm fine now. The doctors told me. They never expected you to carry a coffin. He gave me a glare that said, Shut the heck, man. So I did. He never listened to me. All I could think about how I was going to tell our manager. Darren had another heart attack carrying a coffin on the way back from our meeting. How on earth could I explain that? Thank you so much, the sweeted man said, and laid him over the hearse. I anxiously shifted from the foot the other as I watched them, the distance slide to the coffin out and haul it over their shoulders. How do you know them? An old woman asked me. I panicked. I worked with him, I said. That's nice. He's always said how much he liked his work. I wanted to correct her, to say I was talking about Darren, but I didn't then. I'd need to explain I wasn't supposed to be here. As if everyone knew that what to do. They created 2 lines and allowed the coffin to pass. I felt my heart race for Dream, wanting to take the weight off his shoulders, so he wouldn't have to do what he was going to instead. I silently watched them pass. I caught Darren's eye and he winked at me. One by one the fellow mourners fled in the behind them. In the moment, standing alone outside, except for the sweeted man who checked his watch. I thought about casually walking back to the car and waiting there. Then in the distance I noticed something it was hard to miss. A Lime-Green Beetle coming around the behind and passing all the cars that parked up along the verge. What are the chances? I said to myself. Sir, please, make your way inside, the sweeted man said. Okay, I replied without a second thought. I had got this far. I wasn't going to leave Darren on his own in there. I pushed open the large oaken doors, seeing all the mourners in a place in the pews. Their identical black outfit like the crowd at the football match. I watched as the coffin was put in the place and searched for a seat. Around halfway up there was a space, enough for Darren and I to sit. I sat and I was relieved to see Darren at the front wasn't breathing heavily or sweating. He took the place next to me and we waited in silence. Moments later, we heard the doors open for a final time. We turned in unseen to see Ted and Elsa walk hand in hand up to Asile. I snapped my head back around, not wanting them to notice me. They passed by without incident and took a place in front of Ro. Jesus, I whispered to Darren. What are they doing here? They know we are not supposed to be here. They will complain. We may lose our job. Shh, just be quiet. It will be fine. But it wasn't fine. I needed this job. I was praying for a wedding. What was going to say to Susie? I lost my job because I went to be a funeral by accident. I feel anxious sweat begin to grow. Darren, on the other hand, couldn't have looked more calm. I jumped as the door clicked shut. We are gathered here today to celebrate the life of a man, a son he wasn't father, but he loved his nephews and nieces as if they were his own. God, it wasn't vengeful. It tasted our faith to prove that we are worthy of this love. The pastor continued for a while and then said, Our first hymn is Ode to Joy. You will find it on page 7 of your hymn books. We stood and sang. Like I told Ted, I wasn't religious, but as the congregation began to sing, I felt a spirituality I hadn't felt since I was a child. It was as if God Himself was here with us. And even though I wasn't meant to be there, I felt as if I was welcome. As the song ended, Ted stood up, and I felt my heart race. I looked down at my feet. It's great to have so familiar faces here today. Some old like my mother Ruth and Ilsa's father Edward, and it's lovely to see some new faces too. My heart sunk. It felt as if he was talking directly to me. I peered at Darren. His head was held high and proud as he belonged there. Our son is a good man, a fair man. I couldn't have asked for a better person to bring up. I remembered when he was 5 and he rode his bike for the first time without stabilizers. He rode in circles on the gravel behind the house. His face was so full of energy, and that never stopped, never. Then we are at their son's funeral. Oh my God, he ignored me. My wife doesn't want to speak. She's little emotional, and who would blame her? He gave out an awkward laugh. But we both love him, and we are thankful so many of his family and friends could be there to see him off. If there's anything else you would like to say, calm words, please do. I heard Ted's shoes echo around the cavernous hall. How about you? I squeezed my eyes shut and waited for someone to get up. When no one did, Darren nudged me. I looked up to see Ted stand in the aisle, look directly at me. He smiled and tilted his head back toward the altar. No, I can't do this. Darren, this is insane. There is no turning back now. If we lose the sale, we will lose our jobs. Without thinking, I found myself on my feet. Everyone started at me. I don't know them. I don't even know their name. Pretend it's me, Darren said, grinning. He was enjoying this way too much. I wondered if it was my panic that tickled him, or whether it was the intensity of the situation. I had no idea what I was going to say. I had nothing prepared. But my legs put on foot in front of the other and across the lectern. Ted put his hand on my shoulder. You didn't need to wear a tie, he said. We don't wear ties around here. I absently touched my blue paisley tie and felt even more out of place. I am so sorry, I said to him. You will do fine. Standing in front of the lectern, looking at all the mourners, I felt my heart jump. So hard, I was worried about hearing it. I glanced at Darren and he winked back at me. Hello everyone, I started. I'm in shock, as I think you can all imagine. Throughout the congregation, people nodded in agreement. I met him 5 years ago at work. He thought I was an intern, and he took me to onside and said, if you want to be a good salesman, you need 3 ties. He then took me shopping. I stopped and realized everyone was following my every word. This one here, I said, tugging on my tie. He picked this out. He said it showed I was playful but meant business. A few chuckles murmured around. He then looked at my shoes and said you cannot take someone seriously who was bad shoes. He made me take them off, and he showed them to me. Showed me how scuffed they were and how they didn't shine. He bought me some new ons and some polish. When I say he brought them, he took me to shop and they pushed me to the cashier €150. My suit didn't cost that much. This time laughter rang out and I smiled. I was killing it. So he dressed me better than my father ever did, and we started going out on sales trips. It wasn't until 4 years later, a year ago, when I asked him to be my best man and that I told him I would be a salesman for 10 years. There were smiles all around. I felt good, felt like I had helped ease their pain a little. Ted nodded and clapped, and then one by one others joined in. I waited for the sound to die down before I said my final words. So yeah, he's a good guy and I loved him. I felt a grin grow from year to year. Darren was watching me intently and I returned to my seat. Great job, Darren said to me quietly. I meant every word I replied and I felt tears begin to well up. The pastor had returned to the lectern. If we don't sell now, I'll be pissed, I said to Darren, but his mind was elsewhere. It comes to time when we had to send our friend to flames so that how many pass over the afterlife. I fell to adrenaline, still surging through my system. That sounds a little crazy, I said to Darren, nudging him, but still he was elsewhere. It's time, the pastor said as he walked over the coffin. The Pelviers get up and made their way over. Darren stood up. He was really into this. He walked over and stood next to others. Ted was waiting next to coffin. I don't think I am the only one who knows I am going to miss you. Darren shook his hand, and I will miss you too, Dad. I was numb. I watched as the Pelviers opened the coffin and helped Darren inside. What's going on? I shouted, and murmurs fluttered around the congregation. It's okay, Darren mouthed to me. I got up and felt arm pull me back. Get off me, I said, pulling my hand away. As I got to asile, the suited man was in my way. Let me through. I demanded. I can't do that, he said, shaking his head. The Pelviers and Ted picked up the coffin and moved it to back of the hall to the conveyor belt that sat in front of the red velvet curtain. Darren, what is this? I shouted, but he couldn't hear me. But now other men had made their way over to me and held my arms. Please don't make a scene, the suited man said. What are you doing with him? It's his time, he said. Cannot cremate him, he's alive. It's what he wanted. This is insane. Why is that? You are going to burn him alive, I said, pulling against the hands and held me gently but tightly. He wanted everyone he loved with him as he passed over. Is that a bad thing? Yes, it is, I said, suddenly confused and taken off guard. He only had weeks left to live. He wanted to go his way, not alone in his flat room. A heart attack. I fought against my captor, but there were too many of them. I fought until the coffin disappeared behind the curtain. Then I fell into the floor, and the griefs relented. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Thank you for coming, Steve. He loved you very much, and it's obvious you loved him, the pastor announced. Our next hymn is Jerusalem on page 5. I can't remember how I ended up outside, but when I did, I started at the smoke that rose from the back of the building. You did well, Steve said, a voice from behind. It was Ted. I wiped out tears that didn't stop flowing. What do I tell my boss? Tell him you got the sale. We really want it. Darren, as always, looked after us. I don't care about the goddamn sale. Darren, he was my best friend, and you were here with him. Did you see any of his other friends? I didn't. What do I tell them? Nothing. Say you drop Darren off where you always do. We'll take care of the rest. I drove straight home, as if it were 40th. There was no traffic. Susie knew something was wrong, but I said I was tired. From the day it took it out of me, my boss phoned me today, saying he had bad news. What happened? I said, already knowing the response. I don't know how to tell you this. Darren's dead. I stayed silent to try to portray shock. He was driving with his parents. They have an old beat-up Beetle. You know how unreliable those things are. They found it burnt out on the side of the motorway. What? I said, suddenly parked up. All three of them went up in flame. How said I was numb. I didn't know how to respond. His parents were in the car too. Their bodies will bones. I don't know how much more. I am sorry to have to tell you that one awakened, but thought you'd best know. Thanks, I replied solemnly. All I could think about was about what Ilsa asked me. That have I ever killed anyone? That it was almost certain that I have caused the death of someone just by interacting with them. I wondered what would have happened if I told Darren no. Let me find the way home. True, he would have never listened to me. So there you have it, folks. A glimpse into the mysterious and often terrifying world of the paranormal time. Whether you are a believer or skeptic, there is no denying that the enduring fascination that people have with ghost spirits and other supernatural entities. We hope you enjoyed this video and that it has left you with some insights and perspective on this intriguing topic. As always, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Until then, stay healthy, stay tuned. See you in the next episode. Good night.